mentioned last class. Okay, we have a filter with a difference equation given by equation 4.5. Okay. Just a second here. I don't know why this guy had it twice. Okay. We have the input shown in figure 4.9. We said that the input is a step function, a unit step function. And the question becomes, what is the output y of n? And we derived 3 or 4 values. Okay, 3 or 4 values.
Come on.
Morning. And we saw that y of 0 is 1, y of 1 was 1.5, y of 2 is 1.75. And I hope that you finish the rest of this. Does anybody not know where this table comes from? Does anybody not know how to calculate this table? All right. And then when we plot y of n versus n, we get figure 410. It starts off here at 1 and it ends up at 2. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. Same filter, different input. Find y of 0 for me, please, and send it by chat. Yes, Mr. Buchan, please don't share that with anybody. I am waiting for more answers. I only have one answer. All of you told me you knew how to get the table of the last of the first problem we did today. All of you told me you knew how to do that. How is this problem any different? No, Mr. Roll, that's not right. Somebody else? No, Mr. Johnson, that's not right.
Dr. Carter,
Yes.
is this like what we was doing last class, or did you do an equation at the start of class? Because I was a minute late, 1 or 2 minutes late.
Yeah, man, this is exactly what we did last class.
Oh, okay.
And clearly you don't understand what we did last class. I am tired of preaching to you. You must study after every class. I don't know why students think they can pass a course without studying. Continuously studying, not just studying for a test. All right. Here's the equation. Where you see n, put 0. Y of 0 equals 0.5. Y of 0 minus 1 plus x of 0. It's as simple as that. So that's 0.5 y of negative 1 plus x of 0. Y of negative 1 we don't know, so we assume that it is 0. So y of 0 equals x of 0. And what's the value of x of 0?
That's 1.
1. So y of 0 is 1. Again, I ask, why is that hard? What's difficult about that? Send me y of 1, please, in chat. Yes, Miss Buchamp, that's right.
That's correct. I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
See that 0.5 y and -1? Why did you make that zero again?
Why did I make what zero?
When the 0.5 y and -1 that we just did.
All right.
Why did you make
What's
that
the
value?
value? What's the y? What's the value of y of -1?
The value.
Excuse me?
Hmm. All right, sure.
What do you mean, sure? I told you what it is. I told you it's zero. I told you it's zero. Why? Because we don't know what the value is. Where on this page you can find the value of y of -1?
Yes, sir.
You don't know what it is, okay? And you can't find out what it is. Therefore, the only sensible thing to do is to assume it's zero. Mr. Higgs, that's not right. Mr. Rule, that's right. And again, we did the same thing last time, Mr. Johnson. Last class we did the same thing. So this tells me you haven't looked at this work since last class. Please pay attention. Again, from the equation. Here's the equation. That's the equation we go back to. Now where we see n, we put 1. Y of 1 equals 0.5. Y of 1 minus 1 plus x of 1. So this is 0.5. Y of 0 plus x of 1. And then we look back up here. What's y of 0, Mr. Johnson?
1. We know that value.
0.5 times 1. And what's of x of 1, Mr. Higgs? Where you got that from? Where do you get x of 1 equals 1 from? Yeah, it's right there. It says it right there on the page. All right. X is 0 for every value except n equals 0. So what is x? What is x? X is an impulse. X is an impulse. That's the definition of impulse. Just like in the last problem, X was U of N. In this problem, the X is an impulse. So X of 1 is 0 down here. So Y of 1 equals 0.5. Send me in chat. Oh, there we go. Yes, Mr. Johnson. Yes, Mr. Beauchamp. One more person, please.
Oh, sorry, I can send it right now.
Well, Mr. Anderson, you're, you're not right. Mr. Roll, you are right. No, it's not right. If that's Mr. Anderson who just asked me, Mr. Anderson, you're wrong.
Okay.
Okay? Again, we go back to the equation. Where we see and, we put 2. That's 0.5. Y of 2 minus 1 plus x of 2. So y of 2 is 0.5 times y of 1 plus x of 2. So what's y of 1, Mr. Anderson? Mr. Anderson, what's y of 1? All right, you still claim to be plugged in. You still claim to be online. Mr. Anderson, what's y of 1?
No, I didn't understand the question. I was still going over my answer why I got it wrong. So I was trying to look at what you doing and look at what I doing and seeing where I make my mistakes.
Young man, does anything what you just said makes any sense? If I'm explaining something, then why are you doing your own thing?
My bad.
So not only don't you know why your answer is wrong, you don't know what I'm talking about now. You have to pay attention. As it clearly says on the page, Mr. Anderson, if you would look on the page, if you look on my writing pad, it clearly says y of 1 equals 0.5. It clearly says that. Yes, bottom left of the page. All I was asking you to do is read the page.
I understand.
0.5 times 0.5. And what's x of 2? Anybody, what's x of 2?
0.
0. 0. So y of 2 is 0.25. Y of 2 is 0.25. One more. What's y of 3? Send me y of 3 by chat, please. Yes, Mr. Q-Champ, you're right.
Dr. Carter, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, say you asked us why a 4, right? We didn't do none of these steps yet. Is there a way
Well, then,
to find
no.
why a 4?
No.
So
Well, not using this technique. Not using this technique, but later on we won't be using this technique anymore. This is just a very, very brief introduction to show you that what? Y of 4 depends on Y of 3. That's what this equation is saying. This equation is saying the present value of Y equals a half the previous value of Y plus the present value of X. But there is a way to solve this difference equation mathematically.
Oh yeah, that's what I was asking.
There is a way to solve this equation mathematically without doing this recursive calculation. Well, we're not there yet. Okay. Some of you all not even bothered to learn what I'm presently giving you. Yes, Mr. Roll, that's right. Please pay attention. Again, in that equation where you see and put 3. So that's 0.5.
Dr. Godwin,
Y is 3. Yes, go ahead.
I have a question, but it don't have nothing to do with what you writing. I just wanted to know, like, what about this course makes it a 3 credit course and not a 4 credit course?
Excuse me, we're dealing with this subject. If you want to ask that question later after I'm done with this subject, then I'll deal with that subject.
All right.
All right. What's Y of 2? Miss Adley, what's Y of 2? What's Y of 2? Clearly, Mr. Hadley's not paying attention. Anybody, what's Y of 2?
0.25.
0.25. It says so right on the page above it. Right on the paragraph above it. What's X of 3?
0.
0. It says so right here. Right here when it's defining X. So this is 0.125. This is 0.125. Okay. So
Dr.
summarize.
you can put the last page up for a second, please. You could lift it up a little bit. Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. All right.
So we could plot this quite easily. This one, this 0.5, this 0.25, and there's 0.15. It's here. Then, okay, and this is Y of N. And here's X of N. All right. If the input's impulse, what's the output called? If the input's an impulse, what's the output called?
Would that be a step function?
Yeah, man. Look at Y of N. Does it look like a step function to you?
No, sir.
If the input's impulse, what's the output called? This is a 320 question.
Yeah, the sheet ready for two. Yeah, I think that's H or T or something like that. Yeah, hold on. Not a
Don't give me
transfer.
transfer function.
No, that's something.
Transfer function is not defined. It's not defined in time domain, and it's equivalent to time domain. Transfer functions are not defined in the time domain. I probably said this to you all before, but I'll say it again. I wish that UB had exit exams. An exit exam is where you take an exam that shows that you're competent in the areas that you've been taught. It doesn't matter if you've got an A in the class. If you can't pass that exam, then you don't graduate. You folks have retained very little from your previous classes. If the input is impulse, the output is the impulse response. And we call that H of N. H of N is usually impulse response. Some books is G of N. In the previous question, what was our input? What was our input?
Would that be from negative to the n?
I'm asking you, what function is that?
You talking about figure 4.9?
Yes.
And that's just a regular step U of N. step function?
Well, that's what I'm asking you. It's a step function. The input's a step function. So here's the output. Here's the output. There's the output. So what is this called? What's figure 410 called? What is the output called when the input's a step function?
Step response.
Step response. Step response. And in this book, it's called S of N. S of N. Okay. I guess I shouldn't have written that there because if I teach this class again, I would need to know. I would ask students the same question. All right. Any questions about what we just did? We did step response. That's the first thing we did today. We started it last class. We did step response, and then we did impulse response for the same filter. For the same filter. What filter? Example 4.2. The difference equation. The filter that is described by the difference equation in equation 4.5. All right. Now the young man was asking me about 460 and credits. Please restate your question.
Right, I was asking, what about this class makes it different from 410? Why it's 3 credits and not 4 credits?
Well, why don't you ask the same question about 302 or 420?
I mean, I usually could tell the difference. Sometimes I feel like the volume of work in a 4 credit course is more. But I feel like this is a lot of work we're doing now too. So I just was asking, like, what the difference?
There's a lot of work, but it's not as much as 320. It's not as much as 410. It is a lot. I agree, it's a lot of work. That's why I'm bitching at you all to study after every class. Because if you don't study after every class, you will be confused. But the students don't want to do that. Students only want to study when an assignment is given or a test is due, which is stupid. That's the wrong way to study. First of all, when you study that way, you don't retain your knowledge. If you cram for exam, you cram it in and it'll come right out. You won't retain it. If you study a little bit every day, you will retain that knowledge. All your 3 credit classes should just be just as much work as this class. All of them. Now, I know that some profs don't push very hard. I understand that. And for the most part, students really like that. Students want the least amount of return on their money. Well, I know you don't pay anymore. But if a lecturer is quite happy to give you an A for no work, you're quite happy to take it.
Why you say that, though? The God, right? Some people is pay, you know.
Most people don't. The vast majority of people don't. Excuse me?
Feel waste.
Well, the truth of the matter is students don't want to do a lot of work. Most students do not want to do a lot of work. Most students would be quite happy if I did half the work that I do. But I will not be covering the curriculum of the class. And the curriculum of this class is no different than the curriculum at any university. Any university. You look at the curriculum of digital signal processing at any university, and you can find out it's very similar to this curriculum. Well, all I can tell is you are entitled to a course outline, and you should insist that your lecturer give you a course outline. Well, then you are in class with them. You know whether or not they are actually trying to do so. They are actually trying to finish it, or they're just happy with not doing very little work. Anybody else before we move back?
Okay, good. I don't know if you saw my message. I actually speak with you after class.
I could give you about 2 minutes after class.
Yeah, that's fine. It's anything long.
Anybody else? All right. All of you have had me now for what? Most of you had me for 120, 235, 320, 410. This is now the 5th class you're having me with. And you know I try to finish the syllabus. I work hard at finishing the syllabus. And I do that because I don't know where you're all going to end up working eventually. I mean, if you go and work at BEC, you go to work at BPL, you go to work at BPL, you better know something about motors and generators. You go work at BTC, you better know something about communications. We give you a very broad education in this program, broad and deep, if the syllabus is taught. Because we don't know where you will eventually end up. You go to work for ZNS, you better know something about communication theory. If you go to work at a small electronics firm, you better know something about electronics. And because you got an A, might get you to the door. It might get you a job, but it ain't gonna keep you there. If you go to work for somebody other than government, if you can't do the job, even if you have a PhD in that area and you can't do the job, they can tell you goodbye. Because businesses need you to get the job done. And if you don't know the material of that class that you got an A in, they're gonna let you go if you don't improve. Anyway.
Dr. Cadre,
Yes.
and you work to electronic place?
Many, many years ago.
You had your degree already, or you had your doctorates? Yeah, or he's working towards that.
The company I work for sent me away to finish my bachelor degree in electrical engineering. Then I worked there for close to 5 years. Then I came to COB over 40 years ago. And then COB sent me away to do my master's and PhD.
Cartwright, before you move on, do you think we still have a chance to pull our socks up, or before we graduate? Seeing that we in certain areas we weak on.
Yo, man. So you admitting to me that you did very little work? Is that what you're admitting to me right now?
No, certain areas I weak on. Yeah.
You can always improve the areas that you're weak on. Always, but not at the expense of a course that you're doing now. Your priority right now is to finish the courses you're doing. That's your priority. And then when you finish the courses that you're doing right now, then you can either retake the class, or if you don't want to do that, study it on your own. I learned electronics on my own. That company I was telling you about, before they sent me away from my bachelor's degree, I did a home study course in electronics. A 2-year after school home study course.
Totally got it.
And I worked after school.
Totally got it.
I graduated from St. John's with the best results. All because I was focused. Yes, Mr.
So who
Pindar.
teach you all the calculus and stuff that you need to do electronics?
That was a technician level. That wasn't a technology level.
Oh.
You can get by without doing calculus at a technician level. It's not the best thing. Calculus makes things easy, believe it or not, although you all make it difficult. You all make it difficult because you don't bother learning the rules. But calculus makes the math easy. If you don't have calculus, then you have to invent different ways of coming up with the same answer. And those ways are going to be approximations. Those ways are not going to be exactly correct. There could be approximations to the truth. Any other questions before I move back? Okay. Now I'm going to let you in a little secret. You can actually simulate a digital filter in PSpice. Do you recognize this from last class?
Yeah, I see one, two components, but that box, no, that's the first time I seen that.
Which box you talking about?
EXP.
Oh, okay, all right. That's called a Laplace pod. Well, we use Laplace pod earlier. I mean, sometime in our journey. Now you see, if you had remembered 320 when we're dealing with Laplace transforms, you could tell them exactly what that ESP of -6 of -s means. You could tell them exactly what that means if you remember 320. But I'm willing to bet you don't remember 320. You don't remember Laplace transforms, the relevant part of Laplace transforms. What do you think that ESP -3 does? What's the purpose of that? All right. Look at this diagram in light of the equation we did last class. Equation 4.5. Tell me what the output is equal to. Just look at this diagram and tell me what the output is equal to. Nobody? Nobody can look at this diagram and tell me what the output is equal to? All right, are we clear on what the output is? Are we clear that Y is the output?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Look at your notes from last class. What is that equation? What was equation 4.5?
The box, that's the delay, right? Supposed to be the delay, right?
Very good, Mr. Buchamp. Very good. So, in that equation 4.5, it says what? The output equals what? 0.5, the previous output, plus X. Well, see your summer there? See your summer right here? Y is what? X plus what? The output of this delay. What's the output of this delay? Y of n minus 1. This right here is Y of n minus 1. Let me the textbook. This here is Y of n minus 1, except that we're not dealing with Y, we're dealing with T. Because this is analog, remember. This is analog. Put that right here. All right. And so right here would be
Put 0.5 to the front of it, right?
exactly. Very good. That'd be right here. And we've got to bring that box down. There we go. And what's the thing? What's the thing with the 0.5? What do we call that? And 410, what do we call that? What do we call this triangle with the 0.5 in it?
You mean again?
Yes, we call it gain. I'm just trying to show you how this digital stuff is very similar to the analog stuff we've done before. The main difference being instead of T, we're dealing with N. We're dealing with specific values of time, not continuous time. So this circuit, this block diagram for a circuit is implementing a difference equation. That's what it's doing. Except that it's not a difference equation in N, it's a different equation in T. Right. And so I put an AC source here so I can get the frequency response. That first, actually, we're only dealing with one filter. I didn't tell you, but that's a certain kind of filter. Let's see what kind of filter it is by plotting the magnitude response. Let's plot the magnitude response. Can you all see it?
And come on.
It didn't come up, eh? Hold a sec then. I need to stop sharing. You see it now? So we plot an amplitude versus frequency. And we see that our delay time was 1 second. I'll tell you how you know that in a second. Our delay time is 1 second. So our highest frequency is, so the sampling frequency, if our delay is 1 second, our sampling frequency is 1 second. And so the high, 1 hertz, 1 hertz. So our highest frequency is 0.5 hertz, 0.5 hertz. And then it keeps repeating itself after that. So the only unique space is between 0 and 0.5 hertz. And so that's where we operate it, between 0 and 0.5 hertz. You got the same problem with the digital filter. So between 0 and 0.5 hertz, what kind of filter is it? What kind of filter is it? Folks, look at the frequency response and tell me what is it doing?
Look like a low boss.
Thank you very much. Why the hesitation? It is clearly passing low frequencies than it's passing high frequencies. In this case, high frequencies mean 0.5 hertz. Okay, so I didn't tell you that this is a low pass filter. I showed you that this is a low pass filter. But of course, digitally, that's not. We won't implement this in PSpice digitally, because this is not a digital implementation. This is an analog circuit that has delay in it, and this delay is EXP negative AS, where A is the delay time, and clearly our A here is 1 second. Now let's do time domain. Let's put a step there, and a step in PSpice is simply DC. And so I have to go and I have to do a transient response. My final time has to be 14 seconds. And so my step ceiling is 14 milli. And we simulate. And do you see it there? Do you see Do you see the step response I just showed you for digital, which is sample? We started off at 1, and then 1 second later, we went to 1.5, and then 1 second later, we went up 1.75. So this here is what? What is this? This is the step response. This is the step response in the analog domain. But it's taken on values that we found out from the digital domain. It's 1, 1.5, 1.75, and the rest. So in other words, you could implement a digital filter with analog parts, provided you could build this delay. Building this delay, as I mentioned to you before, building this delay is not an easy thing to do. So that's why we don't build filters in an analog domain this way. Because this in digital domain, this delay is simply memory. You can easily build memory with digital circuits. And you learn all about that in 230 and 302. All right. Don't worry, I don't expect you to know this piece by stuff, because that's not usually taught in a class, but I thought it would be helpful. All right. Let's take on now. Let's do another filter. So when we look at one filter so far, we looked at the step response and the impulse response of one filter. Let's look at another filter. Right. What's the A vector look like? What's the A vector look like? All right. Let me ask the question another way. What's A0? What's A1? What's A2? What's A3? What's A0? What's A0 equal to?
That should be 1, right?
It is 1. It's the coefficient of y of n. What's A1 equal to?
0.5?
No.
0.
0. What's A2 equal to?
That should be 0.5 now.
No. A's are the coefficients of the Y's. They're not coefficients of the X's.
B is the coefficient of the axis, right?
Like, exactly.
Is that a K or Y in the equation?
Excuse me?
Is that a K in the equation? 0.5.
Yo, man. Why are you even asking that question? What does K mean?
I don't know that I X or K, that's why.
Okay,
But,
K means nothing to you. Does X mean something to you?
Probably not.
X don't mean anything to you?
I want to know what the letter is.
I know you want to know what the letter is, but I'm telling you, you should be able to tell me what the letter is. That's what I'm saying to you.
So, Dr. Godway,
Yeah, go ahead.
that means all other coefficients of A should be 0.
Exactly, Mr. Beauchamp. Therefore, what's the A vector? What's the A vector?
Open bracket. 1.
1. Yes. Now, let me finish addressing Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, what is this equation of? What is this a difference equation for, Mr. Johnson?
I know it's for filter, but I know which particular filter.
You don't know what?
I know it's for filter.
But what?
I believe the difference equation for filter.
All right. And what does the difference equation do? What is it relating?
Would it be talking about like maybe with a response or something like that?
And by response, you mean the input or the output?
In this case, I'd say input.
I don't know where I go so wrong. Clearly, it's not me. It is how y'all can escape simple things. Come on, all the digital filters we looked at, all of them that we looked at so far,
Yes, sir.
has X of n as its input, has Y of n as its output. All of them.
That's output. Yeah.
So this difference equation is relating how the output depends upon the input.
Yes, sir.
So is that an X or a K?
That's a X.
X. Because we've only been talking about X is the input, Y is the output. That's all we've been talking about. What's B0 equal to? What's B0 equal to?
Now your output is be a 0.
B0 is 0? Is that what you said?
No, I'm asking. So that should be 0.5.
0.5. What's B1 equal to?
Negative 0.3.
Negative 0.3. What's B2 equal to?
That should be 0.
0. So what's a B vector equal to?
Open bracket 0.5. Negative 0.3.
Now, again, we did this last class. We did this last class for the previous filter. And here we are, a class later. And the vast majority of you can't do it. What is that saying? You're waiting for me to give assignment so you could just learn the assignment. You don't want to learn the whole course. You just want to learn what I test you on. That is not working smart. If you decide to go work for a digital signal processing company, what you can tell the people, Dr. Cartwright teaches this? Is that what you can tell the people? You probably will, because I won't be there to defend myself. But that ain't gonna be no excuse. You pass this course, you're supposed to know this. No lecturer can test everything in a course. None. Are you sure I don't know what I can put on the final exam? And then when you don't know it, you're gonna blame me for not teaching it to you. I just taught you this stuff last class, but you didn't bother learning it. Well, so let me tell you why A and B's are important. Because in Octave, there's a command, y equals filter. It's BA or AB, I forget which. I'll find out. There's this command. There's that command. These may be reversed. I'll check on it. And what does that mean? That means give me the A vector for that filter, give me the B vector for that filter, give me the input. Give me the input. And this command will give me the output. So what am I telling you? I am telling you, you are refusing to learn something that you'll need. All right? That's the first question. What kind of filter is this? I don't mean high pass, low pass. I don't mean that kind of filter. I told you there were two different kinds of digital filters. I told you that last class. What are those two different kinds?
A recurrence.
What are those two different types? Recursive, and non-recursive.
Oh, sorry.
Recursive and non-recursive. Is this a recursive filter? Is this a recursive filter?
I'd say no, because it has different values.
I don't know what that means. That is so vague. it has different values. I don't know what that means. You talking about the difference equation has different values? Different from what? The filter has A values and B values. Every digital filter has A values and B values. How are these A values and B values different than the previous filter? When I told you that there are recursive filters and non-recursive filters, how did I tell you what made a filter recursive? What did I say make a filter recursive? You don't know because you don't study. The output does not depend upon a previous value of y. The output depends only on inputs. This is the present input. This is a previous input. If the filter only depends upon inputs and not outputs, then it's non-recursive. This is non-recursive. Non-recursive. Another way of saying the same thing, A0 is 1, all the other A's is 0. This is non-recursive. Non-recursive is also called FIR. FIR. And recursive is called IIR.
Hey, Dr. Ketter, can you repeat that last statement again about it depending on the input?
Look at the equation, young man. Look at the equation. Does the output depend upon the previous y? Are you looking on my writing pad?
Yes, sir.
Does the output depend upon the previous y? Yes or no?
No.
I don't know why you hesitated. Why did you hesitate? It clearly says y then equals 0.5 times x of n minus 0.3 times x of n minus 1. Where's the y? There is no y.
Yeah, there's no y.
So it's non-recursive.
Okay.
Contrast that with 4.5. 4.5. Here, the output equals what? 0.5 times the previous output. There's a y.
So it's recursive.
So it's recursive. We did this last class. Okay. Any other questions? You know, if we were meeting face to face, I would be giving you a test at the beginning of every class. Because apparently you will only work when I make you work. And this is a 400 level class, for God's sake. Why do I have to make y'all work? All right. Take your snips, please. I want to move on. Let the input be an impulse. Let the input be an impulse. What's 5, 0? Send me your answers, please. Send me your answer in chat. Okay, I was right. Let me make this correction, please. Page 3. The B vector goes first. The B vector goes first, and then the A vector. No, Miss Beauchamp, you're not right. No, Mr. Kerr, you're not right. I don't know why students find this difficult. It boggles my mind. Yes, Mr. Beauchamp, you're right now. One more, please. No, Mr. Kerr, still not right. All right, let's do it. Y of 0 equals 0.5, x of 0 minus 0.3, x of negative 1. But x equals delta of n. So y of 0 equals 0.5, delta of 0 minus 0.3, delta of negative 1. That's 0.5 times 1 minus 0.3 times 0. It's the impulse function. It's only 1 for n equals 0. Everywhere else is 0. Y of 0 equals 0.5. Any questions about that? Send me Y of 1, please, in chat. Yes, Mr. Pewchap, you're right. One more person, please. Yes, Mr. Johnson, you're right. Yes, Mrs. Stewart, you're right. No, Miss Anderson, you're not right. You clearly don't have an understanding of what you're trying to do, Miss Anderson. Please pay attention. Again, y of 1 is 0.5, x of 1 minus 0.3, x of 0. What's x of 1? What's x of 1?
becomes delta 1.
Delta of 1 minus 0.3 delta of 0. What's delta of 1? What's
0.
delta of 0? And what's delta of 0?
1.
1. So this is negative 0.3. Any questions about that? Hey, send me y of 2, please. Send me y of 2 in chat. Yes, Mr. Buchamp, you're right. Yes, Mr. Johnson, you're right. Yes, Mr. Roll, you're right. No, Mr. Anderson, again, you don't have a clue. Please pay attention, folks. Y of 2 equals 0.5, 0.5, x of 2 minus 0.3, x of 1. So y of 2 equals 0.5, delta of 2 minus 0.3, delta of 1, and delta of 2 is 0, and delta of 1 is 0, because only delta of 0 is 1. So this is 0 plus 0 equals 0.
So, Dr. Cartwright, everything else should be 0 also, right?
Absolutely. Good for you for seeing that. So the output then, which is what? What's the output called? What's the output called?
Impulse response.
Impulse response. So H of n then. H of n. Okay. What does H of n look like? Looks like is at y of 0 is 0.5. And then y of 1 is negative 0.3. Here's n. How do you write that? How do you write that as an equation? How do you write this graph as an equation? How do you write that graph as an equation? Y'all don't study. I don't know how you expect to learn when you don't study.
So you rewriting it as
I'm writing as an equation.
so would it be h of n equal 0.5
H of equals 0.5
delta n
delta of n. I don't hear y'all saying of.
delta of n minus 0.3 delta of n minus 1.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you get this? Do you see this? Do you see that the impulse response is the same thing as a difference equation? Except that the inputs been replaced by impulses? Okay. The output Y is replaced by H, the impulse response, and then the input's been replaced by impulses. So if I give you the difference equation, you could write down the impulse response right away. Next thing, you see that there are only two impulses on the output. So we have a finite amount of impulses on the output. That's why it's called a FIR filter. FIR, finite impulse response. Okay. And then the other filter, IR, infinite impulse response. It has an infinite number. The impulse response has an infinite number of impulses. We'll have to leave it there for today. Before I say goodbye, any questions or comments? Okay.
I have
Everybody
a
leave.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Which page this is in the book? Which page?
This is chapter 4 in the book.
Hey, Dr.
Alright.
Conrad.
This is chapter 4 in the book. Read the whole chapter. Because if we don't do it today, we'll do it tomorrow.
Dr. Conrad,
Yes.
you said he's talking about the different career opportunities, right? How would we
Yes.
know what job title of specific strengths and stuff like that? Like how you say BPL mostly
You could
communication.
you could read. You could Google different disciplines of electrical engineering. And that will tell you what different areas need, what different areas do. Okay. Sorry, but I have to go. So please leave, except for Mr. Kerr.